A very good afternoon. I'd like to please call the three filmmakers who are going to be a part of our panel. We're just going to do a debrief about being a woman filmmaker in this industry and getting access to funding, right? So let me start off with just introducing who we have on the panel. Xolisile Mkwanazi is an admitted attorney and has been practicing for the last 7 years and is responsible at the National Empowerment Fund to assist clients realize the goals of their project. So, Xolisile, good afternoon and thank you. Thank you. Khule, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yebo, Khule is a director, photographer, and stylist. And last but not least, Zoe Ramushu is a filmmaker, journalist, and activist. Over the past 5 years, she's transitioned from a legal background into a creative filmmaking role, and she produced her first feature film in South Africa, as well as 2 New York-based documentaries, which one of them is what we saw just now. So, Xolisile, I'm just going to start with you. Why does the NEF recognize creative and cultural industries as an important contributor to the South African economy?
I think I should start by introducing the NEF because I know a lot of people don't actually know what it is. So the National Empowerment Fund is an agency of the DTIC. We fund black businesses. That's the objective of the NEF in various industries, but particularly in the arts. There was a need, I think, to sort of develop the cultural the recognition of our cultures, and that relationship started with a partnership with the Department of Arts and Culture in 2016, where concessionary funding was set aside specifically for this industry, not just filmmaking and TV productions, but across the many spheres of arts. So your fashion designing, your painting, and various areas. But more recently, and I think it was something that was already there when the fund started, although that fund has been closed, and we'll go into detail with that. And more recently, the focus has really been around women and empowering women in this space, because we've realized that when we are reporting and as the data is coming in and how many people we've funded in this space, realizing that women actually aren't in the right spaces, in the bigger deals that we're doing. So there's a lot of focus that's coming into assisting women in this area realize their potential.
Yeah. And Khule, as a woman filmmaker, just let me know about making your film. I know you do quite experimental style, but just in terms of your own experience, in terms of accessing funding for your creative projects, what has that been like? And tell us about the process of creating the film that we saw a little earlier.
All right, so I chose experimental filmmaking as it was more of a strategic choice. It is something that favored my pockets because I started out with experimental filmmaking as a student, right? And I found that it was the most cost-effective way of getting my story across. I didn't have resources, I didn't have the access, so I just thought that this was the style that worked best for me. And I mean, I've self-funded all my films. So when we're talking in terms of tiers, I honestly think I'm like a tiers level. So yeah, I've funded all my films. To make Okumhlophe A was a bit of a sporadic process. I think experimental filmmaking in general is quite sporadic. It doesn't follow a conventional style, and that helps me, I guess, because I'm a lone ranger, not by choice. I didn't choose to be to wear all those hats.
Yeah.
I did it because, again, it was a strategic choice. I know that a lot of my peers are working 9-to-5s. They have to support their creative hustle, or they also just trying to figure themselves out. So when I approach the people I approach, the friends that star in my films, I do it strategically because I know they'll understand my financial situation. They know that I don't have a Duvernay money. So so I just think it's going to be easier for them to understand that when they're coming on board, I'm not paying them, but it can be a transaction that can benefit them in a certain way. I'm glad that they came on board and decided to create for the sake of creating.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Fantastic. And I know that we shouldn't have to do that, right? And I think it's a story of a lot of people. We all have 9 to 5s trying to fund our creative projects and trying to, where we don't have budget, try to make it happen regardless. But when you make the transition from having been hustling or crowdfunding, etc., and I know that you've just done that, Zoe. Congratulate Zoe, everyone. She's just landed a Netflix deal. About that transition and what that does for your own, to be able to dream bigger because you have more resources on hand. So just tell me about the process to get to where you got. And I know you've been doing this for a few years, pitching, etc., but just tell us about making that transition.
Respect for you, like so much respect. Wearing all those hats is incredibly difficult, and it's an incredibly painful process making a film. So for you to have something on screen that you did all on your own, like mad kudos, like that's great. For me personally, I guess the process has just been about pitching yourself, not necessarily your project, but your ability to deliver. And that obviously starts with a lot of self-belief, and as a young black girl, you look very young, people don't want to give you money, people can't trust you, or they think they can't trust you just by looking at you. So it starts with a lot of having to internally tell yourself that you're deserving of financing, you're deserving of brands, and that they also should desire to work with you. But that, I think that it starts with that, because a lot of people don't even apply, because they just don't think that they're the person that these brands are looking for. But you are actually the person that these brands are looking for. You absolutely just have to believe in yourself and constantly put yourself out there. No matter how many rejections you get, no matter how many people speak down to you, no matter how many times people tell you you can't do it like this, you need to do it this way, don't you know that you have to have this much experience, don't you know that you need to have X, Y, and Z? You just have to put yourself out there, and it's really difficult, I know, as a creative. It's so incredibly difficult. You have to believe in yourself and believe in the talent that you have, and that what you have inside of you needs to be seen by the world. And I think that's what, for me, keeps me going constantly, because it is a very lonely job. It's an extremely lonely process when you're pitching something, you're sending it in, you just send it there, you don't even know who's going to read it, who's going to look at it, is it good, is it not? You can ask your friend, you can ask your mom will tell you it's great because she's your mom, But it's one of those things that you have to inherently have that belief in yourself and keep putting it out there, and then the right people will find you. That's
great. Okay. So back to Xolisile, what are you looking for? What should we be? What are the requirements? What are the categories and criteria that you're looking for when we as creatives are coming to the NEF for funding? What are sort of the models and what you ask for from us?
So the biggest thing is bankability. Your project needs to be bankable. If Netflix believes in you, so we are not experts, we're not in the space. So if someone else gives you the thumbs up, we probably will look at it, as opposed to someone coming in and saying, I've got a script.
Yeah.
But the NEF wouldn't have the expertise to actually know whether it's a bankable script or whatever it is. So we look for people that have already walked a certain distance, and they're coming to us and they're saying, look, I just need that final push to get me over the line, whatever it is. So the normal documents, the pre-sales that you've done, the chain of title documents that you have. We need to know that you've got the rights to produce that film that you are producing, the distributor, who are the key role players. If you've gotten so far as to have the cam bedded down as well, we look at those documents. So basically all of the documents that are surrounding the business of the film, we want to make sure that those are in place. But before we go to our committees, because we've got a panel of individuals that look at the transaction whether it's going to be economically viable. At the end of the day, our funding isn't a grant, unfortunately. And so we do expect a return. Although, yeah, films can be a little questionable on return. So there's the documents that we ask for upfront, and then we conduct a due diligence on the movie. We take it to our committees if they are okay. Depending on how much it is that you're looking for, there's various committees that approve that transaction. Once they've approved, you're good to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions? Yes, please, go ahead.
Alright, what's a CAM?
CAM is a collection account management agency. So they do the collections once all of the money comes in. Yeah.
Okay.
So they assist us basically because we don't have to collect.
Anybody else? Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to speak about the so I work in theatre and I've learned how to adapt my stories into digitalized medium, and it becomes a problem because theatre hasn't really understood how you pay for artists in that type of platform. So in terms of film, what do you guys do when you screen your works? Do you compensate the artists? Is there some set of contracts? What do we do now in terms of like South African Guild of Actors is trying to protect artists right now in terms of how they get compensated each time a body of work is being filmed? So what is the strategy? How can you guys advise, especially in my realm, in my space, what I can do in order to not feel like I'm not protecting also her voice or any person's voice or any artist's voice? What do I do in terms of making sure that the distribution is fair amongst all disciplines, from director to producer to crew to etc.?
Oh, sorry, is that for me?
Anyone?
I think it's more for the filmmakers because you guys,
I just want to understand. You're saying you're digitizing, so you like record your
So
show,
it's like
and then where do you,
already.
what platform do you put it on?
So it would live like on a virtual festival, and
Okay.
then
And you
like,
own the festival.
Yeah, and
Okay.
then innovating it in different spaces to bring more communities. I'll bring it into the bioscope, for example, for people to view it and for people to see it, which means audiences pay tickets, which means it's no longer only just living on virtual spaces. It's now developed into another environment.
Okay. And so the question is, how do you get compensation from it, or
What do you guys do as well? Because in
Okay.
terms of you
Oh, okay, I see.
working through actors, what are your compensation deals?
So currently, so that's a good question. Currently, the way it's structured in South Africa is like actors get paid for a project, for a body of work, and depending, it's contract to contract. So a lot of the higher earning or star power, the ones that can draw in star power, then ask for a percentage of the profits or the proceeds of the film. But that's contract to contract basis, you know what I mean? So there isn't a set royalty structure currently in South Africa, but as you mentioned, Saga is actually advocating for that, where artists can be compensated every time something replays. Because currently what happens is with IP, a lot of things are commissioned, so actually the broadcaster owns it, not even the producer who creates it, creates the content, and that's something that the DTI is actually fighting for producers. So even before you get to the actors, the producers themselves need to own the IP. So that's something those are very valid questions, and those are things that people are discussing very much and are causing a lot of ruction in our industry, but the right kind of, ruptures in the industry because people are asking those kind of questions. But in terms of the reality of what it is at the moment, it's literally on a deal-to-deal basis. And then when you have a film that you can license, that you've managed to retain the IP, Bioscope, you make a deal with them, they play it, and then they pay you like a license fee for a certain period of time. So each place you go, they just pay you for a certain period of time. And it's like each place will tell you how much they pay on average, so you've just got to do that negotiation with each place you want to place your content on.
And film is a bit different, I think, because As opposed to music, for example, where you've got one person creating that particular, with film, you've got so many different forms of IP that you're dealing with. And you have a situation where you have to compensate all of these people, and what happens when you're reproducing the work and it keeps getting played over and over. And granted, music has royalties, but is it applicable? Is it easy to apply in the film space? And it's up to you guys in the industry to actually come out and comment on those pieces of legislation or whatever it is that are being touted. Yeah. Because if you don't comment, obviously things will happen. And by the time you wake up, you haven't had your voice heard in that space.
But I think that's where one of the challenges also comes in, is around the jargon, the legalese, and just how very complicated some of these documents are. And I don't think it's always possible that we actually understand what the copyright amendment bill is or anything like that. So I think that we need a little bit more education, and I think we need a little bit more people on the other side of the business of film. So a lot of creatives, there's no way we can get our minds around some of this jargon and big words and really legal documents. So I think that's something, when these pieces of legislation come out, those consultations need to happen where people unpack for us to understand in layman's terms. And just in jumping to that, in terms of your own application process, is it unsolicited? Do people apply on your website? How do they approach you?
Yeah, so if you go out to our website, what is it? It's NEF, sorry. It's nef.co.za. Yeah. If you go onto our website, there is a platform where you can access our application form. It's relatively easy. There's even areas where we can assist you with preparing the business plan and the documents that we'll need, because I think where people get tripped up a lot are the financials, the projections, the budget, all of those things. So we can assist, and even with regards to just agreements, because sometimes we actually prefer that people come to us with unsigned agreements, but just with people, who's going to be the distributor, who's going to be the completion guarantor and whoever it is. But we can assist even in reviewing those agreements for you, or with you, to say, this particular clause, did you understand the implications of it, for example? So that goes to the non-financial support that we provide to our applicants. But the process of application itself, it's just literally just going into our website, accessing the application form, filling it in by hand or on the website itself, sending it through, and our pre-investment team reviews it, screens it to make sure that this is actually a business, because you have to be registered with CIPC, you have to be tax compliant, and all those tick boxes that you normally would have. And then once that process is over, it goes into a fund. So we've got 4 different funds. Typically with movies, it will go to a particular fund called Umnoto Fund. And then that fund will then take up the process of doing the due diligence. And
So NEF?
NEF.co.za. Don't quote me. But I've got my business cards,
So please speak to Xolisile afterwards if you'd like more information, get her business card. Anybody else who's had experience or, in terms of the challenges of getting funding for your own creative projects, or anything outside the traditional ways of fundraising that you can think of? Any other questions or comments? Yes, Flavia.
I have a question, totally unrelated. To Khule's mom, sorry, I didn't get you. Your name. I think it's very commendable what you're doing, and incredibly difficult as a Black woman to the position that you're in. Yet necessary, because we need to tell our own stories, right? So my question to you is, have you thought about maybe changing is it a possibility or a consideration to change from experimental and to look into more commercialized content? Do you have a vision to do that, or are you just strictly experimental?
No, I was literally literally just experimenting for my first 3. I guess you can call it a trilogy of sorts that I created. But I do want to branch out into the more conventional 3rd act structure type of short film. I wouldn't mind doing commercials, but I think it's been really difficult navigating the industry independently. There's a lot of talk about it's who you know in this industry, and even in that regard, there's no guarantee that that's going to get you to the next level. So I have a script that's been sitting on my mind for 3 years now, that I have started writing. So I do want to ideally complete it by the end of this year so that I am ready for the next funding, should I say, season next year. And in my experience, let me even talk to you about my own personal failures. I had a production company with a friend of mine that had to be closed down recently because it was stagnant for 2 years. In our defense, it was opened on our behalf by her mother. And we did feel that it was a bit rash because we weren't ready. We didn't know what to expect of this industry. So we still have a lot to learn when it comes to how to navigate our own business. We didn't treat it like a business because we still had to learn about business, you know what I mean? So I feel like I'm ready to take that next step, and when I do, I'll be more intentional about it. So yeah, it's good to be here.
Just this, I think what you're touching on is very important. And at what point do Black filmmakers, Black female filmmakers, at what point does it get easy, right? So I'm even started. At what point does it get easy? That's it. Yeah, I think that's my question. Is how do we? Swift is a brilliant organization, and just the work that's input and how women come together. But what else can be done for women, particularly Black women, to make it less harder? Because I think we all want to help each other.
Yeah.
We all want to work together and grow together, but practically speaking, what does that look like? Especially because it's easy to talk about things and say we want to grow together, but as a filmmaker, you know the challenges that you face.
Yeah.
So what is that practical change that you both think should, and can happen in order for it to be easier?
I feel like I would like for industry experts, I would like to be given a chance. I feel like take that chance, give the people a chance, If they prove you wrong, then it's fine, it's on, I don't know if it's on their head, but just give us a chance, because people are hungry. The Black female filmmakers that I know are really hungry to change the face of the industry. It's just about being given a chance, which Zoe touched on earlier, that we're not trusted because we're young and we don't know. But how are we going to know if we're not given the experience? We need experience, but where am I supposed to buy it? Yeah. So, I don't know.
And yeah, just in terms of, they always say creating a seat at the table, and I think a lot of people say if they're not letting you in, create your own table. And I think that's what you've done in terms of, no matter the fact that you didn't have the resources, you had stories to tell and you made it happen one way or the other. But of course there are advantages that come with having those resources artistically, having those resources in terms of your art reaching wider audiences, and really being consumed and put out there so that people can benefit from the stories you're trying to tell, which is, anybody else before I'll give to you? Oh wait, are you telling me time's up? Okay, let's, just 2 last questions and I'll go to thanks and we'll be done, I promise. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, so mine is just a comment because I know we're hell-bent on speaking about the business of filmmaking, but I just want to really point out and say that you made an amazing, Jesus is going to be angry with me for saying this, you made an amazing fucking film, right? Well done. And you will be taken care of, you will be catered for. Your talent It is only one part, but it will take care of you. Don't give up in the pursuit, and don't run away from your creativity, because on the other hand, you need to be connected with someone who understands the business of filmmaking. I think those are the lessons that we learn as filmmakers. We each have our roles to play, and a big part of what my role is connecting creative people with opportunities and access to opportunities, like speaking to the NEF and how we go about doing stuff like this.
So everyone speak to that guy
Yeah, so
after
contact
this. Last question, and then I give the vote of thanks. Go ahead.
Cool. I'll make it really quick because we are out of time. It was a two-part question for the film Bombi that we saw, right? I just wanted, the first one is, I found the scene with when she goes to see her mom for the first time very visually breathtaking. And I just wanted to know, in terms of like production, was that shot first before, like, which came first in terms of the shooting in order? Was it the house scenes and then the outside one, or?
She just quickly stepped out.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah, the
Oh,
director of the
Tina's
film.
oh, director's not
outside.
up there for that. Oh, my bad.
Okay. Is it Tina Zibi?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll show you Tina outside. I'm going to hand over to Smangele to do a vote of thanks before we say goodbye to the filmmakers. So over to you. Smangele is operations director from Swift. And after that, we're going to give over to the programming director of ARIFF, the Africa Rising Film Festival.